10 years ago, I had this list in my head. I never dreamt that I'd get to the end of that list. So I've decided to end my River Monsters journey.
When River Monsters first aired in 2009, it became an instant hit. Hosted by British biologist and extreme angler Jeremy Wade, the show took viewers on a thrilling journey across the globe in search of mysterious and sometimes terrifying freshwater creatures. Over the years, Wade traveled from the Amazon basin to the icy rivers of the Himalayas, chasing legends of fish large enough to swallow a man whole. His calm, scientific approach and respect for both nature and local cultures made River Monsters different from any other wildlife show on television. But after nearly a decade, fans were shocked when Wade announced that the series was coming to an end. For many, the question was simple: why stop something so successful? The show was still popular, and Jeremy Wade was as beloved as ever. Now, years later, Wade has finally spoken openly about the real reasons behind the show's end. What he revealed wasn't about ratings or fame. It was about exhaustion, danger, and a world that was quietly changing beneath the surface of its rivers. His story uncovers the hidden struggles behind one of the most daring nature shows ever made, and a painful truth about the planet's disappearing wild places. Before River Monsters existed, Jeremy Wade lived a very different life. For almost 20 years, he worked as a biology teacher, traveling whenever he could to remote parts of the world. In those places, far from cities and comfort, he heard strange stories from local fishermen, tales of giant catfish, monstrous stingrays, and invisible forces that dragged people underwater. These stories fascinated him, and over time, Wade began to collect them like pieces of a global puzzle. In 2007, while on one of his trips, Wade fell seriously ill with malaria. He spent months recovering, and during that time, the idea for River Monsters took shape. He wanted to create a show that mixed adventure, science, and real storytelling, not exaggerations but investigations into the truth behind local legends. When River Monsters premiered on Animal Planet in 2009, it immediately became the channel's most watched series. Audiences were hooked by the perfect mix of mystery and realism. Each episode was part detective story, part survival adventure. From wrestling giant stingrays in Thailand to searching for killer catfish in the Congo, Wade brought a sense of respect and curiosity to every mission. He wasn't just chasing monsters. He was trying to understand them. Scientists praised his factual approach, and audiences loved his calm, serious tone. The show grew into a worldwide phenomenon. But behind that success, a storm was slowly building. While viewers saw thrilling catches and dramatic footage, what happened behind the camera was often far more dangerous. Filming in remote jungles, muddy rivers, and politically unstable regions came with enormous risks. Wade and his crew often faced extreme weather, wild animals, and health threats. Over the years, several close calls nearly ended in disaster. In the Congo, Wade once contracted another severe case of malaria that nearly killed him. On another shoot, while battling a massive arapaima in the Amazon, the fish slammed into his chest so hard that he said it felt like being hit by a horse. "I could still feel it 6 weeks later," he once recalled. During another expedition, lightning struck nearby, seriously injuring a member of the sound crew and leaving everyone shaken. Even the camera equipment often failed under heat, humidity, or heavy rain. Wade, now in his 60s during the later seasons, pushed himself to keep going. But the endless travel, long days, and unpredictable conditions began taking their toll. Crew members started leaving, worn out by the harsh conditions and constant pressure to capture dramatic footage. What viewers saw as an exciting adventure was, in truth, an exhausting and sometimes terrifying job. Wade later admitted, "You don't realize how much these things are affecting you until you stop. And by then, something's already changed." By 2015, River Monsters had already explored nearly every major river system on Earth. Over 100 species of large or dangerous freshwater fish had been investigated, from the giant catfish of India to the monstrous stingrays of Southeast Asia, but finding new monsters became harder each season. Many rivers had already been explored, and the show's team had to travel to increasingly remote and risky locations just to find new stories. Jeremy Wade always insisted that the show had to stay honest. "If we start inventing danger, we lose the truth," he said. But the truth was that the world was running out of mysteries. Some fans noticed that the show began revisiting old locations and species. While the episode still offered new insights, it gave the impression that the series was repeating itself. Online forums and viewers began to ask, Were there any monsters left? Behind the scenes, Wade was wrestling with that very question. He didn't want to keep the show alive just for entertainment. To him, river monsters had to remain real, a genuine investigation into nature, not a staged adventure. As the list of truly unknown creatures grew shorter, Wade realized that the end might be closer than anyone expected. While Wade was dealing with creative and ethical challenges, another issue emerged that was beyond his control. The television industry itself was changing. Around 2016, Animal Planet, the network that aired river monsters, began shifting toward lighter, family-friendly shows. They wanted programs that focused on pets, veterinarians, and uplifting wildlife stories, rather than dangerous expeditions. River Monsters was expensive to produce. Each episode required massive budgets for travel, safety teams, and equipment. Some expeditions cost more than $500,000. For the network, it was becoming harder to justify such costs when simpler studio shows could attract similar ratings for much less money. Adventure documentaries were slowly being phased out across many networks, replaced by safer, cheaper formats. Behind closed doors, these changes created tension. Wade's proposals for future expeditions were met with hesitation. The same executives who once celebrated his daring fieldwork now questioned whether the show still fit their new direction. In 2017, Wade made the difficult choice to bring River Monsters to an end. Officially, he said it was because the subject matter is finite. It was a polite explanation, but the truth, as he later revealed, ran much to years after the cameras stopped rolling. Jeremy Wade finally shared what really ended River Monsters. It wasn't just about running out of creatures or network changes. It was about what had happened to the rivers themselves. When Wade revisited some of his old filming locations, he was devastated by what he saw. Once thriving waterways were now polluted, overfished, and lifeless. Species that had once inspired awe were gone, victims of human greed and neglect. In an interview, Wade described returning to a river that had once teemed with life, only to find it murky and silent. "The monsters were gone," he said quietly, "not because we found them all, but because we destroyed their homes." The realization hit him deeply. The series that began as a celebration of nature had become a silent witness to its decline. Wade also revealed that filming had become increasingly dangerous in certain countries due to political instability. There were times when his crew narrowly avoided serious conflicts or natural disasters. Insurance companies began warning that future expeditions might not even be approved. On top of that, Wade began to question the ethics of showing rare species on television. He worried that publicizing their locations might unintentionally attract poachers or illegal hunters. These personal and moral struggles convinced him that River Monsters had reached its natural end. It wasn't just about catching big fish anymore. It was about facing the painful truth that many of those fish might soon no longer exist. After ending River Monsters, Jeremy Wade didn't retire. Instead, he shifted his focus from chasing creatures to protecting their habitats. In 2018, he launched a new series called Mighty Rivers on Animal Planet. This time, the goal was not to find monsters, but to investigate the health of some of the world's greatest rivers, including the Amazon, Ganges, and Mississippi. Mighty Rivers was very different in tone. It was less about excitement and more about awareness. Wade explored how pollution, overfishing, and dam construction were destroying vital ecosystems. He talked to local communities, scientists, and conservationists to understand what could still be done to save these natural lifelines. The show revealed that the real monsters were not fish, but human actions that were poisoning the waters. In 2019, Wade continued this mission with another series, Dark Waters, which looked deeper into unseen environmental problems like invasive species and collapsing food chains. These shows carried a heavier emotional tone. Wade was no longer the fearless adventurer chasing dangerous creatures. He had become a witness to their disappearance. Through these projects, he urged viewers to see rivers not as mysterious battlegrounds, but as fragile systems that desperately needed protection. Even though River Monsters ended years ago, its legacy continues. Jeremy Wade inspired millions to see rivers as places of wonder rather than fear. He showed the world that nature's mysteries are worth exploring, and that every legend has a kernel of truth. But more importantly, his journey revealed how fragile those ecosystems really are. Jeremy Wade has always been more than just a television host. Long before he became a familiar face on Animal Planet, he was an adventurer in the truest sense. Born in Ipswich, England in 1956, Wade developed a fascination with nature from a young age. He would often explore rivers near his childhood home, catching small fish and insects, and studying how they interacted with their environment. Unlike most children, who might lose interest as they grew older, Wade's curiosity only deepened. After studying zoology at Bristol University, he worked as a biology teacher, using his free time to travel. His early trips were humble, often done on a shoestring budget, carrying little more than fishing gear and a camera. In one of his earliest adventures, he traveled to India's Bhagirath River to pursue local stories of a giant man-eating catfish. That trip planted the seed for what would later become the core idea behind river monsters, the blending of myth, science, and courage in the face of the unknown. When River Monsters debuted, many viewers saw Wade as a fearless explorer, someone who could step into murky, crocodile-infested waters without hesitation. But in reality, Wade has always been cautious and deeply respectful of nature. He once explained, "Fear is necessary. It's what keeps you alive." His calm, deliberate movements weren't just confidence. They were survival instincts honed through decades of experience. That balance between bravery and humility is what made him so different from typical reality TV adventurers. After River Monsters ended, many fans wondered if Jeremy Wade would ever return to television. For a while, he remained quiet, focusing on writing and scientific work. His book, How to Think Like a Fish, became a bestseller. In it, he explained that fishing was never about catching, it was about understanding. Each body of water, he said, has its own rhythm, and to succeed, you must think like the creature you're trying to find. The philosophy behind that statement resonated deeply with his audience. But Wade wasn't done with exploring. In 2018, when he launched Mighty Rivers, fans immediately noticed a change in tone. Gone were the dramatic chase sequences and fearsome confrontations. Instead, Wade used the series as a wake-up call, showing how many of the rivers that once housed monsters were dying. He spoke with scientists and locals who confirmed his fears. The world's freshwater ecosystems were collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. Then came Dark Waters, a show that took viewers into an even deeper look at what happens when entire species vanish or adapt in unexpected ways. It wasn't just about fish anymore, it was about balance. Wade explored the ripple effects of ecological damage, like how the loss of one predator could lead to the overpopulation of another. Through these new series, he proved that he didn't need danger to make good television. Truth itself was powerful enough. Few fans realized just how emotionally draining River Monsters became for Jeremy Wade over the years. The show required him to constantly be in high-stress environments, often away from home for months at a time. His dedication to authenticity meant he refused to fake reactions or stage dangerous situations. Every expedition had to be real. In an interview years later, Wade confessed that the hardest part wasn't the physical danger. It was the constant uncertainty. Some trips took weeks or even months without a single confirmed sighting. "You could go halfway across the world chasing a rumor," he said, "and end up with nothing but mosquito bites." Yet he continued, driven by an unshakable curiosity and a sense of duty to uncover the truth behind these legends. There were moments of pure heartbreak, too. In one episode filmed in Nepal, Wade searched for a mysterious river creature that locals claimed was eating livestock and occasionally attacking people. After weeks of investigation, he discovered that pollution and overfishing had already wiped out the species responsible. "It was gone," he said quietly in the episode's closing scene. That moment, though understated, captured the show's deeper message, that human activity is often the real monster. As River Monsters went on, the emotional weight of seeing so much environmental loss began to affect Wade personally. He became an advocate for conservation not out of choice, but out of necessity. "Once you've seen a river die," he said, "you can't pretend everything's fine." Behind every episode of River Monsters was a small, dedicated crew that shared Wade's passion and endurance. The team often operated with minimal resources in places where electricity, clean water, or even basic shelter were scarce. They had to carry not just cameras, but medical kits, spare equipment, and sometimes even their own fuel. Filming wasn't just about pointing a camera at a river. The team had to plan each shot carefully, balancing safety with storytelling. They often worked from sunrise to sunset, spending hours waist-deep in water infested with leeches or surrounded by biting insects. There were no